Hi everyone, welcome to my podcast, Girls Station. This is a podcast discussing anything and everything, especially to do with girls and issues they face, including periods. Yes, I've mentioned the dreaded word, or it is also called menstruation. First of all, I'm not a health expert nor a specialist. I'm a working mum with two daughters, now aged 16 and 11. I will call my 16-year-old M and my 11-year-old T. I've been discussing this with my children since they were 10 and 14. So this started off as plans for a book, and then T got inventive and said, "Mum, let's do a podcast. Her friends would love it." So that's what I'm trying to do. This cast is for anyone who wishes to listen. Please ask your parents and family members to join in. If you have any comments or wish to discuss anything, please let me know. This is an open forum for anybody. And like I said, I'm not a specialist or expert, and I don't work in the health sector, just an everyday mum. Please do not take offence to my views. It is my opinion, and if you wish to offer yours, please do so in the comments below, but please don't swear. Any feedback is appreciated. So let's get started. In early 2020, everything changed. COVID-19 took over the UK and the world. M was in year 10 and was halfway through studying her GCSEs when lockdown happened. The schools closed. I think it was March the 18th, and the children were told that it was probably going to reopen in Easter. When they first closed, the children were really happy, but they were missing their friends. A couple of weeks went by, and then remote learning happened, and they realised that they weren't going to go back to school anytime soon, and they started panicking. The mood swings changed from happy to... They were up and down so quickly. 1 minute they would be happy, the next minute they were really low. For T, we were picking up work from her school, but also she was doing online learning on a platform, and the site would crash nearly every morning. So because she didn't like the way it was working, she decided to do a timetable, and she was doing her remote learning in the evenings. So she had a timetable where during the day she would read and things like that, and then in the evening she would log on to the site and do it that way. M was still doing her GCSEs, and at that point they were told that they were still going to do their exams and it was still going ahead. She did have some lessons online, but most of it was just working themselves, but she was working between 9 and 3 every day. Our internet was crashing. We would have a lot of IT issues. So, yes, it was starting to get to a problem when I think it was mid-May where both of them didn't want to actually do the work. And then I said, you're going to have to, because if you go back to school, you're going to miss out. You've missed out on a lot, and you don't want to miss out on the work that you're already missing. So I said to them that you don't want to miss out on things, and when you get back, it's going to be a struggle anyway. So, yes. T started having temper tantrums and mood swings. I didn't know if it was the pandemic or puberty. M made an offhand comment saying she's going to start her period soon. Her mood swings are really bad. I decided to bury my head in the sand. I was working, and home life and work life was just taking work over. I was doing longer hours than I would do had I been going into the office. I don't want to say I was scared. I think it was more anxious on my part, knowing that the kids were growing up. Easter flew past, half term. they thought that they would be going back. We were getting information from school that they were trying to get the kids back in again, but they didn't know what was happening. May Bank holiday, I received a phone call from a friend of mine. Her daughter was 9 years old, and she said to me she started her period. Her daughter was really upset. She was really upset. And she asked me if T had started her period, and I said, no, she hasn't. And she said, have you actually spoken to her about it? And I said, no, I've not broached the subject. And she said, well, I think something needs to be said. And also I remember the conversation I had with Em, who said to me, Mum, because she's missed school, she won't know anything about periods, because usually the talk would have happened in year 5. And I think the next day I saw my neighbour, and she mentioned about colleges and open days and year 7 GCSE results, and it was like everything was happening together. And I realised that we would have to start looking at colleges for both the kids, because the younger one was going into year 7, the older one was going into college. It's a very big shock to my system, because obviously if they'd been at school, it would just have been a normal thing happening, and it would just gone into order, whereas everything was just chaos. So I was talking to Em, and she said, Mum, you need to talk to T, because I don't think she knows anything about periods. Alarm bell started going off, and I panicked, as I had the talk with Em when she was 9, but one of her friends had started her period at 8, so she had to come home asking questions. And then, as I said before, in year 5, they were given the talk, so she was aware of it. Oh, how I wished at that point the school was still open. So I started Googling to get some information to try and be as informative as possible. My niece ordered a starter pack for me so she could see the different pads and tampons and what they look like. That arrived on the same day, so I could have the talk with her now. The change, as we call it, is something that happens to girls, and in our culture, it's not discussed. Girls are given a pack and told, here you go. It happens once a month and you need to use these sanitary towels. And then that's it. It's a taboo subject, and I'm trying to get the information out that it's normal and we don't have to be scared. My sister started her period when she was 8, and back in the 90s she missed so much school as she couldn't cope. I'm so glad that things are changing now, and that mums in my generation are trying to be open with their children, but still some mums aren't. It's a very difficult subject to broach and difficult to talk about, but it's embarrassing. But does it have to be? Getting back to my talk with T, I will say she is very naive. I sat her down and said, do you know what periods are? She said, is it timetables and lessons in school? I smiled and said, no, periods are what happens to girls when they hit puberty. I said, you start changing, and we had previously mentioned hair and arms and between her legs. And we've also mentioned about her chest area and hips getting bigger, so she was aware of this. I then explained periods are what happens to girls when they reach a certain age. It can start between 8 and 14. I said, as times have changed and the environment is changing, it's happening to girls now earlier than it used to. I said, in books, it says it happens between the ages of 10 and 14, but I've known it happened to girls earlier. And she asked how long it lasted. And I said it can last between 7 and 10 days, and it happens every 3 to 4 weeks. It's called a period cycle. I explained to her where the blood comes from. I showed her pictures from the pamphlet I received with the starter pack, Her lips started trembling and she said, "Blood?" I said, "Yes, nothing to be scared of. It's not a lot." I showed her the pads and showed her how to use them. She was really happy with the starter pack. She said, "I'm going to take that to school." She asked questions about who it happens to and when did it happen and has it happened to gran, aunties, cousins. I said, "Yes, it has." We discussed cramps and headaches and said not everybody gets side effects as everybody's different. I told her about painkillers, hot water bottles and things like that will make her feel better. That should help. We also talked about what would happen if she started her period at school and didn't have anything with her. I said the school nurse should have some, and also if she wanted to speak to the teachers, she could do. She said, well, now she knows she'll carry the pack and always take a spare pair of underwear. But one thing specifically, I said to her, don't go onto the internet and research on your own. If she had any questions, she should ask me or her sister or adults. I have to say this, everybody's periods are different. One person may have cramps where they miss school, others don't. I remember when I started my period, I was lucky I didn't have cramps or pains. I did PE and every other day activities and I didn't have an issue. But I had friends who would miss school and they had really heavy periods, so everyone is different. After I spoke to T, Em mentioned this to her friends and they said they couldn't believe I had broached the subject with her. They were so very surprised that I would bring up this taboo subject. Bearing in mind, Em's friends were between 14 and 15, I was really surprised by their reaction. It's been over 30 years since I started my period, and I realised that in some parts of society that this is still a subject that is avoided. After noticing the girls' reactions, I spoke to various friends and family members during the summer of 2020. My plan was to put a book together, but I haven't actually done anything with it. Talking to people about the first periods, it's a memory that a lot of people don't forget. That scared feeling that you're alone. But remember, you're not alone, as your mums, sisters, grandmas, aunties and female members of the family have been through the same feelings and experiences that you're feeling right now. We're all scared, but please try and discuss this with your daughters. It is better to be open and it brings families closer together. There's help out there and lots of forums and websites. But kids, please do not look at the websites by yourself. Do it with the guidance of an adult, as you could get the wrong information. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you found this helpful. As I said before, I'm not a specialist and I don't work in the healthcare profession. It's just my thoughts and feelings that I'd like to share about how I discussed the subject of periods with my 10-year-old. I hope you have a good summer holiday and take care of yourselves. I'm hoping to do another podcast in the next few weeks, but if not, speak to you soon. Please leave any comments down below. I really appreciate you listening. Take care. Thank you.